Guys, welcome back to the channel where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. First off, if you could just do me a very quick favor, if you have not hit that subscribe button yet, please consider doing so. I appreciate it so much. I am so close to hitting that 10K mark, and if you like the content on the channel, it's a free way to follow the channel, and you can put your notifications on. That way you can see whenever a new video is published. Also, if you could real quick hit that thumbs up, that like button, that would also be very much appreciated. So the Tommy Zeigler evidentiary hearing ended on Friday. Remember, I did a whole video early last week. It was pretty intense, and I did follow a lot of the updates. They did not seem to have court on Tuesday, and then you had Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So a lot of arguments, between the DNA experts, forensic scientists, that sort of stuff was what was going on in the courtroom to end the week before it now lays in the hands of Judge Letitia Marquez. For those not familiar with this case, I do have a playlist which I will post the link to in the information of the video. But on Christmas Eve of 1975, Tommy Zeigler is alleged to have murdered his wife, her parents, which were his father and mother-in-law, Perry and Virginia Edwards, and a customer of his furniture store, Charlie Mays. Now, Zeigler himself, Tommy, was found shot but survived. The state alleges that Tommy shot himself in order to cover up when his original plan to make it look like a robbery gone wrong went wrong. But the defense states it was a lot more to do with it than that Tommy himself was the fifth victim, but he just happened to have survived. Now, according to the state of Florida, Tommy, he allegedly killed his wife, Eunice, for the $500,000 life insurance policy money that he just got on her weeks before. And of course, that the defense doesn't agree with that because Tommy was very well off. He was very respected in the community, and he financially was doing very well for himself. So again, a lot of discernment between the two sides, and not only that, but the actual investigation pretty much immediately from the law enforcement, from Winter Garden Police, but mostly from the Orange County Sheriff's Office at the time, the detectives immediately focused their sights on Tommy and Tommy alone. So they didn't even really look into anyone else as a possible suspect in the case. And then when it got to court, the judge that presided over the case, well, he already hated Tommy. He had personal issues with him. He should have recused himself from the trial. And then later on, when the jury had some issues with deliberations, and one juror came out stating that she could not make a decision of guilt, that she thought that Tommy was not guilty, well, this judge decided to contact her doctor's office, and her doctor prescribed her Valium. Not long after she was given the Valium, well, she suddenly decided that Tommy Zeigler was, in fact, guilty. And of course, we all know that the DNA scientific evidence of 1976, there was a lot that just wasn't available to anyone. So now we're in 2025, of course, and the technology has improved greatly, and we see this all the time in cases where they find it that someone didn't do it, there's a different suspect involved, all sorts of stuff have changed due to DNA technology. So again, there is a lot going on with this case, and Tommy is the longest sitting inmate in the state of Florida, really. So he's in the entire state of Florida. He is the longest one sitting on death row. And this happened almost 50 years ago as of Christmas Eve. Now, the case is currently, like I said, in the hands of the judge. She's stating that she may not have a decision until the end of March of next year, which really gets me nervous. But before we get to all that, let me play this clip from Fox 35. That way you guys can get a little bit of a wrap up from the final day or two of the hearing.
It's now up to a judge to decide if an 80-year-old convicted killer gets a new trial or stays on death row. Tommy Zeigler has spent decades behind bars, and his defense team showed new evidence. They're hoping it's enough to give Zeigler a different fate. Fox 35's Marie Ettinger is hearing from family about the outcome they hope to see.
The defense wasn't trying to prove that Tommy Zeigler is innocent, just that there is any chance at all that if the evidence they have now was presented in his trial 50 years ago, it may have changed the outcome.
Exactly. They were not trying to say that Tommy didn't do it, although they sort of are at the same time. And they're not trying to say that any of these potential suspects that they have listed, including Charlie Mays and the others that have been spoke about, that they are the ones involved, but they want the judge to see that there is reasonable doubt and that things just, well, they just didn't go right in 1976 at Tommy Zeigler's trial.
80-year-old William Thomas Zeigler shaking hands with the legal team fighting for his freedom after 50 years behind bars. And, briefly, staring down our cameras as the convicted killer is wheeled back to prison where he'll await a judge's decision.
Tommy always has confidence. So, and hope. As I've told people before, if you lose hope, you've lost it all.
His cousin was in the courtroom all week, and she says she'll be there if Zeigler's case goes to another trial.
It's a very complicated case.
It is complicated. Both sides are focusing largely on DNA samples of different pieces of clothing and blood splatter experts' analysis of crime scene photos.
And that's his cousin, as it stated on the screen, Connie. I got to briefly meet her last Monday. She's a very, very sweet lady. And yeah, it is very complicated, as you guys probably could tell, not only from everything that you've probably been hearing if you've been following it, but especially when I went through the video last week from day one of this hearing. It is quite complicated, and I only wish I could have been there for the rest of the week to actually sit and listen to all this in person, because it, like I said, it is a lot, and a lot of it does go over most of our heads, but let me tell you, this is very, very important. And anyone that tells you that this is an old case and just let it go, well, there's a man's life that has been in the balance, basically, for almost 50 years now. So how is that okay? It's not okay. If the wrong man was convicted or wrongly found guilty in 1976, well, he deserves to have his case get another look.
Even the judge had to ask attorneys to be more direct at times.
How does this testimony help your theory?
If the state convicts a defendant based on evidence that turns out to be bad, the conviction cannot stand.
The defense says their new evidence disproves part of the narrative the state won their conviction on, and what the state is arguing now is different from what they said in 1976, so the whole case should be retried. The state says the new evidence still would not be enough to mark Zeigler as innocent.
The defense seems to think that while the state has to be locked in amber, they, on the other hand, are allowed to change their theory a dozen times, 50 times, however many times it takes.
Oh, Mr. Snow, the defense has not changed their story. Have they changed certain details now that technology has gotten better, has improved? Well, yeah. Tommy Zeigler has never changed his story that he did not do this. That he walked in, he was knocked out, he ended up getting shot, and he struggled with a man in the store. His story has never changed. He has professed his innocence from the get-go.
The defense says this hearing is all about reasonable doubt, and they feel they've raised it.
Is hopeful that justice will be served.
What does justice look like for you?
justice looks like vacating this conviction and having a new trial, which is based on the true evidence.
We can expect a decision by the judge sometime in early March.
Yeah, March. See, that particular date, like I said before, we showed the clip from Fox 35 News. That's a long time away for Tommy. And you could see from the photos I've shown and the photos and the videos here that Tommy is very, very frail. He's 80 years old. He's on oxygen. He has to be wheeled around in a wheelchair. The man has really fought and taken every bit that he has to stay alive till now. I don't know if he's going to be strong enough to make it till March. So I can only hope that Tommy can make it until this judge makes her final decision. And of course, and I hope that decision is that she has doubts about Tommy's guilt, because like I said, I mean, I have been clear from the get-go on this case. In my opinion, he's innocent. But again, this is not what his defense team is looking for from Judge Marquez. They are looking for her to say, there's reasonable doubt. There's enough question that he is not the one that did all these 4 murders. Back in 1975 on Christmas Eve. There's just enough reasonable doubt that he didn't do it. And that said, if she decides that that is the case and that she wants to give him another trial, the next question is, well, is Tommy strong enough to make it through another trial? Well, I'm not so sure he is. But the other question, well, the other thing I put out there is, maybe not so much of a question, but what would another trial look like over 50 years later, when really there's no surviving witnesses? Everyone that was around, pretty much, that involved this case, they're deceased. Okay? They're gone. They have long left this plane of existence. They are wherever they went off to when they passed away. So there's really no one else here to testify. They would have to go through transcripts, that sort of stuff, depositions, the evidence. So that sort of a trial would be way different than the trial that happened 50 years ago. I mean, quite different. But again, I think that at the least, Tommy deserves to have another trial. Really, what I would like to see is for her to vacate his conviction. But I don't know how likely that is to happen. But that said, this is definitely a tough one, and everyone is saying the same thing. We're all saying this is a very complicated case. Lots of questions, lots of things going on, and I think the system screwed Tommy. And of course the state thinks that they got it right. So again, lots on both sides, and it's all now in the hands of Judge Letitia Marquez. So I'm going to pray and hope that she makes the right decision. But I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on this in the comments, and I will try to start going through some of the case. There's old, information that besides this new DNA stuff, that I can definitely go through if you guys are interested. So let me know, because if we're going to have to wait till March, well, we've got plenty of time to start going through, the case. And there's transcripts, all sorts of stuff that I can definitely go through here with you guys. All right, with that said, I hope you have a great rest of the day. And most of all, stay safe.